Alrighty, so welcome back. I just went over how to distinguish between modes of communication and the multimodal presentation, and so that is the big push for this week and the following 4 weeks after this. So make sure you watch that last video to find out what a mode is and what multimodal communication is. Now, for this video, what I'm going to go over is how to structure your essay. Now, this essay is similar in many ways to your past essays, but the purpose is a little bit different. You are very narrow in your focus here. You have one main purpose here, and that is to get people to support your solution. That is the main point of this paper, is to get people to support your solution. Now, how are you going to do that? Well, you're going to have a couple parts. First of all, what's the problem? Now, I know the structure is a little bit different than what I've given you in the past, and I'll break this into a more understanding structure. So when you see holistically how this comes to be. So one of the things you're going to have to first tell us is, what is the problem? If you're going to come to me and say, I have a cure, well, what's the cure for? And so first and foremost, what is your support for your solution? Support your solution. What is the problem? Is it bullying? Is it ADHD? Is it teachers in the classroom? Is it gun control? Is it border control? What is it? What is your problem? Define it. Now, you've already done this in the last two essays, and you touched on it in the first essay. So by this point, you should have a fairly defined answer as to what the problem is. Okay, and as in the past, you can use your earlier sections from your essay. You can use, for instance, in your analysis essay. Where am I? Here. In your analysis essay, you talked about what both sides of the argument were and then what your problem was. In the synthesis essay, you talked about the problem, you talked about your solution, you talked about how you're going to achieve this problem or achieve the solution. Now, at this point, you've been refining that what is the problem, because you've been talking about it in the analysis and then the synthesis essay. Now is your chance to really kind of finalize everything, to refine everything to a point of what is the real problem, because it has to be addressed specifically by your solution. So if you tell me that bullying is the problem, well, what is your actual solution? Is it to start a campaign at the local high school? Is it to start a nationwide campaign? Is it to start getting police into the classrooms to keep people safe? I mean, that could go for gun laws as well. No matter what your solution is, there is a way to present it. So don't limit yourself by saying, oh, I don't want to do anything nationally because I just can't do that. Well, a website naturally is going to be national. It's going to be international. It's going to be huge. Anyone that has access to the internet has access to your page. So don't hold yourself back when you say, I don't want to do anything nationwide, because that's not, I just can't do that. Well, you can. If as long as you post it online, everyone in the nation, everyone in the world can see it. So therefore, it becomes nationwide. Now, is it going to become a national phenomenon? Probably not. But if it does, hey, good on you. Now, after we get the problem, what's the problem? After that, we have to define the solution. If you're going to get me to support your solution, I need to know what that solution is. So if you tell me that there is a problem with bullying at the local high school, what is that solution? What exactly are you going to do to stop that? If, I don't know, if we were here, Miss I know none of my colleagues' names. Man, Miss Dane. Okay, there we go. There's one. Miss Dane. So let's pretend that there's a problem with bullying in Miss Dane's class, and Miss Dane's aware of it, but she can't solve the problem. You're aware of this problem, and that is what your essay is about. What is the problem? Bullying in Miss Dane's class. Define the solution. I want to start I want to put Miss Dane through anti-bullying training. And she's not getting it. The school doesn't have the funds, but we need to send her to training. So let's get her funding. That's going to be your solution. What exactly are you trying to get done? And how are you going to do it? Now, after that, you go into more of a how-to mode. You've now defined what the solution is to the problem, but how exactly are you going to achieve that? What do we need to do? And be specific here. If you're telling me that we need to send Ms. Dane to training, then what training? How are we going to get her there? How much does it cost? What are the steps that need to be taken in order to get this, in order to achieve this solution? And quite literally break it down into steps. This, if you remember from before, becomes an analysis. If you remember from your textbook, analyzing something really just requires you to break it down into parts. That's exactly why you can't see that. That says analysis right here. You are literally just breaking down your solution into parts. How am I going to achieve this? Step by step by step. Now, don't just come in there and be like, step 1, go to school. Step 2, donate some money. That's not what I'm talking about. Talk about it from a hypothetical perspective. In order to achieve this solution, schools must first begin by, or individuals who want to support this must first begin by donating money or going to the XYZ website. On this website, we will. There is a, what do you call that? A donation. What do you call those? Anyways, you're donating money. A charity. There we are. There is a charity, charitable contribution section of the website, and this is where we are doing this. And if you want to do this, if you want to support Ms. Dane, Ms. Dane works here, so donate money to this school, some form or fashion. However you're going to do that, break it down into parts. How would you actually achieve this? Let's go to more of a viable example. If we were doing, say, gun violence, if you're at the national level, it becomes a little bit more generalized. If you're at the national level, how are you going to achieve, let's say that your solution is to create more mandated background check and a 3-week waiting period for all gun sales. I've completely made that up. I have no backing for that, but just bear with me. Let's say that that is my solution to gun violence. How are we going to achieve that? Think about all the steps you have to do. First of all, you're going to have to create a bill. How is that going to go down? Step 1, well, not like that, but in order to begin achieving this solution, a bill must first be created in order to mandate that all gun sales require a 3-week waiting period that follows a background check. In order to begin this process, a bill must first be created in XYZ manner. And then you go on to define what exactly is your bill? How is this bill going to be created? What is this bill going to maintain? How is this bill going to be worded? Things like that. After that, you then go through the next step of the process. This bill will then need to be approved by Congress, and in order to get this done, 10,000 signatures must be submitted to my change.org account. There's a website out there called change.org, and if you're interested in something like this that I'm mentioning right now, go to change.org, check it out. It's a website where you can actually create petitions that gather signatures from people online, and then you can send it off to your local legislator, senator or whatever, and you can then get changes made by having these 10,000, 20,000 signatures, and it shows the leadership that you have a solid backing, and that would be one method of achieving the solution. After you've talked about how to achieve the solution, the last part then becomes the counter argument. You have a counter argument because anything that you do, no matter what it is, if you said I just created a solution, I just created a cure for AIDS, and not only does it cure AIDS, but it makes everybody super smart and comes with a free $1 million. No matter what it is, someone's going to have a problem with it. Oh, where are you going to get that $1 million? Where's that going to come from? Tax money? Well, that's a bad idea. No matter what you have, no matter what your solution is, someone's going to have an argument against it. That's where you need to address it. Near the end of the essay, you need to start thinking about, people are going to say this is bad about my solution, or they're going to say that this is bad about my solution, or this is bad. They're going to say something is bad about your solution. What are you going to say to those haters, right? What are you going to tell them? If they come up and say, you can't mandate a background check and a 3-week waiting period for all people that want gun sales because that's unconstitutional. You need to address that argument. What are you going to say to those people? This is the section where you're going to tell them. If someone told me it was unconstitutional, in this section of the essay, I would go over the constitutional rights and I would interpret the Constitution according to that to my solution and say, you know what? No, it's not unconstitutional, and here's why. The Constitution says this, 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 and this. That means this, 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 and this, and that's why this isn't constitutional. You have two options here. No matter what arguments you have, you need to at least come up with two arguments. And for those arguments, and I'll put that right here, two counter arguments. No matter what they are, you have two options on countering them. You can either say that they're not valid, meaning whatever they say is just utterly nonsense. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not logical, and here's why. That would be you telling them that the argument is not valid. Now, the other option is that the benefits just simply outweigh the issue. If someone comes to you and says, you can't require a background check and a 3-week waiting period for all gun sales because it's unconstitutional. You could, instead of saying it's not valid, you can even go the route of saying, well, even though it is unconstitutional, the benefit of saving all these lives goes beyond the Constitution. You could argue from that's kind of a shaky argument, but nonetheless, you could do that. You only have two options, though. Is the argument not valid, or is the argument does the benefit just outweigh the issue that they're arguing? If they're saying it's a problem, do your benefits outweigh the cost, basically? Let's say that you wanted to stop drunk drivers, and you said that we need to have on every Friday night between 2 a.m. or 12 a.m. and 2 a.m. we need to have police officers stationed every 5 miles throughout the city. Okay, kind of costly, and so one of the counter arguments, someone might say that is going to cost way too much money, and we just don't have the tax money, and nobody's going to vote for that. That just isn't going to work. If you were to say that the benefits outweigh the issue, you're basically saying that the cost of putting those officers out there is nothing compared to the cost of all the lives we're going to save by busting all these drunk drivers. So that's what we're talking about when we mean the benefit outweighs the cost. So in a nutshell, those are going to be the 4 sections of your essay. Of course, you'll also have the intro and the conclusion. And that is kind of strange, but it would go this way. Never written an outline like this before, actually. It just seems to work well. So you'll begin with the intro. You go into what's the problem, define the solution, how to achieve the solution, and then talk about the counter arguments. What are people going to say against your solution, and how are you going to address those arguments? If you're looking at it from the traditional perspective, I can write it up here. Section 1 becomes the intro, and that will need your thesis. The intro would be your thesis. Section 1 becomes what's the problem? Section 2 becomes defining the solution, as we talked about. Section 3 becomes how to achieve. Basically, how do you reach the solution? And Section 4 becomes the counter argument, where you address those counter arguments. and you need at least 2 of those counter arguments that you need to address. Out of all of these, oh, and then of course we have the conclusion. Now, out of all of these sections, I'm going to say that this is probably going to be the most difficult part of the paper. Most people have a problem with understanding how do I outline how to achieve my solution. There's a couple ways you can do that. The easiest way is to just create an outline of literally what's the plan, how are we going to reach it from where we're at right now. It kind of goes by particular issue, so it's going to differ for every issue. But nonetheless, basically just do a walkthrough, step by step by step by step. How are we going to get there? But do it in paragraph form. None of the, remember, don't do this. Don't just say step 1. Here's what we do. Step 2. Here's what we do. No, put it in paragraph form. Write it as basically a narrative. How are we going to get from point A to point B? And one thing that we still have to maintain is that we're not doing you, I, me, us, we. So you're still trying to get rid of those words. Oh wow, none of those really good on there, did they? Us, we, me. None of those words still belong in your. They still don't belong in your essay. So think of this as a third-person perspective. Now, once you get to your multimodal, your internet-based mode of communication, you can use these, but this is still an academic essay. And basically, what happens is you create your academic essay, and your internet-based modality or mode of communication becomes your traditional, well, your more popular mode of advertising. No, not everyone's going to read, nor would they want to read an academic essay. If you are trying to get high schoolers to join some support, they're not going to pick up your 5-paragraph or your 5-page academic essay. They just don't want to read a research paper, right? Now, if you're addressing scholars, maybe, but the point being is that academic, you can't use these words. But in the internet-based mode of communication, you're trying to reach the general population. So you can use these words. All bets are off when you get to the internet, because you can do whatever you need to do in order to persuade people and engage people with your solution. Okay, so those are 2 different things. So beyond that, the next part is just to create your thesis. And so I'm gonna go ahead and cut this video off and then start the next one, and this one will just be dedicated to the outline of the paper.